All right, so we're going to experiment first before we do our landscape. So we need just a scrap sheet of paper, a water cup, a paper towel, and our watercolor palette. Now, let's remember what watercolor is. It's a combination of water and paint, water and pigment. And you could make it with less water or more water. The other thing that watercolor is about layers. So it's about putting down a layer and being patient enough to wait for it to dry and then coming back and putting another layer and being patient and waiting for it to dry. Now, if we were doing a watercolor the way it's intended to do, we would have watercolor paper. It would be thick paper. It would have a little bit of a texture to it so that it could absorb the water. But we do not have that. So we have notebook paper, and then we have the thin paper in our sketchbook. And that's just the best we can do right now. But under normal circumstances, we would have thicker paper. So let's just get used to or remind ourselves what watercolor is. So let's get some water and maybe go into our red, and let's just kind of mix it until we get some paint, and then let's paint just a little bit and see what that's like, okay? So that's not with a lot of water, so let's do it again with more water. So let's get some of this paint out, but let's put it here in the lid to our palette, and let's go get some more water and really dilute that. So once we have that diluted, do you see how it's a different look to it? This is much more concentrated, much more opaque, meaning that I can't see through it as much, and this is much more transparent, which means I can see through it. So it depends on how much water. This is less water, this is more water. So let's just remind ourselves that that's what we do sometimes in watercolor. So let's rinse out our brush, get some water, and go into the black. Let's just take a little black and put it out here. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush again. I'm going to take a little bit of that red and put just a little bit of that black in there. Black is very powerful, so we don't always need a lot. And then let's see what that looks like. It should be a little bit darker of a red. It's still pretty see-through because it's got a lot of water in it, but it is a darker red. I could even put more black in there. So we wouldn't call that black because it definitely has some red in there. So these are the things that we're going to be doing. So we're going to be messing with the layers, the water content, and then we're going to be mixing some black in as well. So let's do this. Let's practice the layer situation. So let's get some of that red we mixed up, and let's paint just a rectangle if we can. Try to get it even, spread the paint around so there's not pools of red in any particular place. Okay, and let's set that to the side. We're going to try to wait for that to dry. Let's rinse out our brush, get the water out, and let's just hold off. Remember, watercolor, we have to be patient. So let's get our sketchbook. And let's concentrate on drawing what we're going to paint. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an organic shape down here. We're going to let it go off the page, so we're just really needing one line. So let's recall what we know about organic shapes. They are nature made. They might have some curve to it at some point. So something like this, something that is organic. Now you need to use very light lines. I'm going to use darker lines so that you can see. Okay. And then let's do another one just a little bit further up. Again, it's organic. It's not made by man. It's an organic shape. So it's a curved and irregular line. and then one more behind it. Yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine. Okay, and then we're going to draw a trail of sorts. And we're going to try to use this linear perspective we've been learning about. So while the lines aren't perfectly straight, they are going to get closer together as we move up or into the picture. So they're wider, further apart here, which indicates closer to us, and then they get a little bit closer together. Let's do another one back here. So it's like the trail goes over the hill, comes back over here. And maybe this one is going to be much, much closer together. So here's that path that's going back over the hills, back into space. Okay, so let's let yours reflect what mine looks like. Okay, so now let's come back to the watercolor we were doing. We're going to come back to this rectangle. Let's make some more red. Put some red here. We've kind of got a bit of water on there. Let's just paint about halfway into this rectangle. Okay, so what we're doing is putting a second layer. This one is almost dry, so we're putting a second layer. And I'm just trying to show you that watercolor is about building layers. Usually students are very impatient and they don't want to do that. They don't want to wait for things to dry and then come back, okay? So let's put that to the side and come back to our drawing. So we're going to do all of this in blues. So if you would, take your paper towel and let's just clean up anything that we have here in the top of our watercolor. Okay, we don't want it to bleed over. We're going to make this all in shades of blue. Okay, if your water is really red like mine is, you might want to go get clean water. It's important that you have clean water. Okay, so my water is clean now. If it looks pink, it's just because the cup is stained, but it's not. Okay, and we're going to get blue. Let's put some water into our blue. I'm going to get some blue out, and then we're really going to dilute it with a lot of water. Okay, and then we're going to paint a layer of blue on all of these ridges. We are going to try to avoid the pathway. Try to keep it even. I'm just going to do the right side right now. Trying to stay off the trail. Okay, I'm out of blue, so I'm going to try to make some more. But remember, it was very diluted, had lots of water in it. Okay, I don't know if you can see that I'm picking up my paintbrush. I'm not scribbling back and forth. I'm making a stroke, picking it up, making another stroke. A lot of times students do what I call giving the paper a noogie. You know, like your older brother or your older uncle wants to give you a noogie on top of your head, and he takes his knuckles and goes back and forth, and it messes up your hair. We are not trying to do that with our paper. We just want to go in one direction and then pick up our brush and come back. Stroke, 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 stroke. Okay, now I'm going to go over on the left side. Again, trying to stay away from the trail there. Make more blue as you need it. I go down the side of the trail first, and then I sweep out, kind of in a horizontal way. Trying to spread it evenly, not let there be any kind of pools of color. Okay, so we have a layer of blue paint on all of our hills. So we're going to pause right here and let it dry. I'm going to use a hair dryer. If you want to use a hair dryer, you can, or you're just going to have to let it dry completely. Okay, I'm going to add a second layer to my hills, but I'm going to do it only from this middle hill down. I'm going to leave this as one layer, and I'm going to make 2 layers from the middle hill down. Try to make sure you're using about the same amount of water in your paint every time. Remember, we're trying to avoid the trail. Get a nice even layer of paint. Don't let it puddle in any place. then the other side, again, only from the middle hill down. Avoid the trail. All right, and then this needs to dry as well. So whether you use a hair dryer or whether you just wait for it to dry, it needs to dry. Okay, so now we're going to mix up a little bit darker blue. So we're going to get some blue paint. Here. And we're going to clean our brush. We don't want to go get another color with a dirty brush. So we're going to get a little bit of water and we're going to get a very small amount of black. Black is very powerful. Okay, it's going to change that blue very quickly. Okay, so now what I have is a darker blue and I want to use a lot of water and I want to paint this on this hill that's closest to me. So right here, remember, avoid the trail. Trying to spread it out evenly. Okay, so I'm out of my blue, and it's hard sometimes to match your blue or match your colors. I'm going to get more blue. I'm going to clean my brush before I go get the black. I'm going to get a very small amount of black. And then I want some water to thin it out. Okay, and the same thing on the other side. Okay, and then we need to let that dry as well. And this is where we stop for today.